wondering, I want to talk about engagement. Dax, you obviously have a heavy task at hand. I'm a Hispanic millennial, and I know for a fact that I'm probably an outlier, a person who loves about the news and cares about the news. My generation and my specific demographic does not seem to want to get there. I want to talk about engagement. How are you guys measuring your engagement, and how do you know you're being successful at the civic engagement part of journalism, civic engagement part of news?
There's no clear answer to that. We have to use a bunch of different places to go. What are our, what are our visits to our Facebook link and our Twitter link and our YouTube? What is the direct feedback that way? Because it's not like we have, we don't have a direct line for people to call and say, you were great today or you suck, So we have to use social media primarily as that gauge for what actually catches fire and what doesn't.
That's it?
I was going to add, it's a weird thing because you sort of feel it, and I know that's a vague answer, but a piece of content could get 10,000 shares, and it might just be people sharing it. Like, this is a headline, this is interesting, I'm just sharing it. And there's a difference between people sharing it with their own commentary or getting into the comments of a post or a Facebook prompt. And it's hard to measure because you can measure the number of shares, but it's hard to measure the intensity of a conversation. You just look at it and you get in there. Hopefully, if you're good, if you have a community team that jumps in and has conversations with people, and then you just feel that, like, yes, this is resonating with people, and it's very hard to put a number on that, but you just kind of like, okay, that one really, it should be informing your editorial strategy back into the newsroom when you feel that resonance, but it's so hard to quantify, I think.
There's I know that New York Times has a process of looking at engagement, not just at the numbers of traffic, but the engagement. And I know.
Look, I don't know the formula, but when I get my ratings report cards, I know that it's not good enough that I get clicks, that there's a formula based on the amount of followers and amount of traffic that the site gets, and then the retweets, the replies, the sharing. I am penalized if I'm gaining followers but they're not interacting with the content. The formula that ratings gives me means that it wasn't good enough. So just amounting followers isn't good enough to the research team. They have to actually engage. And what I try to do, and Don, you do this a lot on your broadcasts, I know, you're kind of very real with your social media following. You talk about it on the air, you tweet in commercials, tweet on the air, right? There's plenty of anchors that read the teleprompter and say, follow me, use this hashtag, and the audience knows when it's fake. And it doesn't work, and then you erode your credibility.
Thank you.
And
like the other
precious
night,
commodity.
I'm actually doing it, and there are producers who can do it for me. Like sometimes, all right, fine, the show will send out a tweet, but I like to handle my own social media because I like it to be real. And they say, why do you tweet about, you went bowling? And I say, because it's called social media, not press book. It's not a press release media. People want to know about me. Sure, I'll put some stuff in there. But the other night I was tweeting about the Ebola. It was breaking news. A guy from New York City, the doctor, positive for Ebola, and whatever. And we're running the video of New York City police officers with, their masks on and the gloves, and they take it off and they throw it in the garbage can. But as I'm reading the teleprompter, I can't see that video. So someone tweeted and said, Don, did you see that video? What happens to these, were they in the apartment? And I put it on, and I said, send it to my team on the anchor desk as I'm interviewing a doctor, and I said, did this happen? And they said yes. They cut the video, and we put it on the air, and we immediately talked about what happens with, and that's like true engagement. That happens in real time. And I think I believe the viewer appreciates that, even though I'm not sure what the research shows, if that gains anything as an audience. I don't know. But
well, from a technical perspective, I mean, what we've seen on the analytics side is that, if a user individual, like talk about getting in trouble. I've gotten in trouble at Adobe probably more times than not because I tweet and blog on my own name, and it's like, and it's interesting because a couple of years ago, it was all about the control, right? The control of the brand, control of the story. What is the thing being said? Does it go through? We don't have the same kind of policies and that kind of stuff, but it's still got to be kind of controlled. And the funny thing is that the analytics side showed that more often than not, a lot of people, it's like, well, it's a corporate blog or it's a corporate tweet or something like that. And it's very easy to just tune out. Why would anybody engage with that? But if an individual is going out and they're kind of putting themselves out there, and people can relate to an individual a lot more than they can relate to, frankly, a faceless brand.
But you know what I do have more engagement with? The people who hate me. The people who hate me watch me. No, they watch me and they click on my.
Well, the thing is, if you could directly
media.
communicate with them, they are your biggest champions.
Yeah, it's amazing. I mean, I'm like, they're like, I don't like you. I don't agree with you all the time, but I still watch you. So I'm like, great, perfect, love that. Anybody else? Who's got a young lady right here?
Hi, my name is Portia. My question is, with getting new viewers and new audience members, like how often do you find that you're making your content maybe more like comedic or like theatrical to like keep your viewers' attention and make them watch the videos?
Well, what we did, I had all these bold...
Swimming across the Rio Grande, go ahead.
I had all these bold plans for the State of the Union. And my boss at the time said to me, I know you've been really working and very excited about covering the State of the Union with Jorge. I said, I've got these amazing plans. We're going to do it so differently. He goes, we're taking you off the air. And I said, what? What is this? I've got the #1 anchor. Blah, blah, blah. And he goes, we're putting the puppets on, Dax. And so Fusion State of the Union coverage was a talking hot dog, an alien, an illegal alien called Yerd-Nerp. I believe there was a chupacabra. There was a talking mouse that was a conservative critic. And when the applause lines happened, they would give all this commentary. And I watched it at home because I had been sidelined and I had been benched as the news producer. I was really hurt. And it was the most enjoyable State of the Union I can ever remember.
Brilliant? You thought it was brilliant?
Yeah, and it was different. And it stood out.
Yeah.
And, you know, we're experimenting.
I live tweet during the debates, and one of my producers said, I can't believe you get away with that shit, right? Because I think people are sitting at home like, all right, I know you're blah, 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 but they want it to be interesting, and they're thinking the same thing, and I'm like, I can't believe he actually, believes that or whatever. And I probably have a couple drinks when I'm doing it, but but I think it's more engaging than just sitting there watching the boring. But I don't become more theatrical to sell things. I become more theatrical just because I am. I find that the best way to engage with the audience is just to be yourself. And so I have to watch myself not to say, S and F or whatever on the air, because it's really just me. And if you don't go for it, then why are you sitting there? Anybody can read a teleprompter.
And I was going to add one word, authentic.
Yeah.
Authenticity is huge. And I think one of the things, especially for my company on the TV side, what we see from our anchors is that we're allowing them to be more authentic, not necessarily more theatrical or comedic, but allowing them to be themselves at the appropriate times. I think that's what resonates with people, and I think that's where we have the power in social media to also have authentic conversations with people, where it's not just TV news anchor and I don't have an opinion or a voice. We allow people to be themselves, and
not just talking at you can have a communication with the audience. I mean, remember, was it 2011 or whatever, when all these talk shows came about, it was Katie Anderson, all these guys had these talk shows. And I sat and I watched and I said, who's gonna survive? Wendy. Because she is real, right? She used to come and pull her notes out of her wig, and you know what I mean? And, but she's authentic, and she has survived, like 7 years, or 7 seasons, rather, because she is an authentic voice, whether you like her or not. And she also is just who she is, and she has a larger-than-life personality. She's the one who survived, and she is thriving. It's amazing.
And it's not unrelated from the way that people are getting their news from social media. They're getting it from their friends and people they know and they have a connection with personally, sometimes sometimes in real life, sometimes just they have a connection with. And so making that connection.
Yeah. Do you tune in for Hot Topics every day? The top of the show? No? Yeah, see, I'm watching Wendy. I want to hear what she says about the Hot Topics. I'm like, what is she going to talk about? She's going to talk about Renee Zellweger? Boom, there it is. I'm like, yes! And then I can go about my day.